Hi, welcome to North of 48. Just a short introduction to our discussion with Jim Earl. We talk about Canada and then we get right into Ukraine. Very fascinating. I think you will enjoy it. I'm just going to ask you to give this a thumbs up and leave a comment. I really like the comments and I acknowledge everyone. And I want to keep the conversation going. We're not all correct in the world, but as long as we're discussing things, we'll be okay. Now, the full live podcast, which has Israel and Palestine, is on a card. I think it's there. I could be wrong, but it'll be there. Take care. Hi, welcome to North of 48 +6 in northern Canada, and we're loving it. Yeah. I want to start off with going to be some editing today. RCMP have busted the largest, most sophisticated drug lab in Canada. More than $485 million in illicit drugs and drug ingredients were seized in a rural BC community. Funny thing is about this is that yesterday, a tractor trailer carrying $1.5 million worth of cocaine was stopped at the American border, and we're glad that it was stopped at the American border because those people will probably get jail time. There were 7 people captured. They found guns, and most of their names end with Singh. I'm not implying. I'm just saying. We're joined by Hoot and Holler, Jim Earl. Hi, Jim. How are you?
Hey,
Hey,
how
buddy.
you doing? How you doing, Walter?
Good. I hear your cocaine shipment got stopped there, Jim.
Well, that was just a decoy. The bigger shipment just went over today,
Okay.
or I should say under. We have tunnels.
Well, people need their stuff, I suppose. Jim, we had incident in Vancouver, and I mentioned this in our last
Oh, yeah.
podcast, not with you, but
Hmm.
so there's a woman was burning the Canadian flag in Vancouver.
Oh, good. I mean,
Uh,
no, bad. Sorry.
right, it's a pro-Palestinian group called. You'd figure I'd have all this at my fingertips, but I don't.
Because you're high on crack.
Well, my cocaine shipment didn't come in. So, oh yeah, okay. I picked the article that doesn't name the. Anyways, she's also in Toronto and for a conference, and the UN representative was supposed to go to the same conference and said, no, I ain't going with that woman. And her group is now put on the terrorist list: Canada, America, the UK, and the European Union. And in Canada, you can say all sorts of things. You can burn the Canadian flag, but when it's an immigrant doing it. So I want to talk to you about this immigrant person. She's from Seattle.
Yes.
So why are you Americans coming up here burning Canadian flags? Like, what the heck's wrong with
I don't know.
you? I think if you're living here in this country, you shouldn't do crap like that. Why can't, if they're
Why
going to,
not?
if they're going to protest, because I find it offensive anyways. A Canadian can do it, that's fine. But when we're bringing in someone from America to burn our flag, I mean, like, what is wrong with this picture, right?
Well, Americans are known for burning their own flags.
I
What's wrong
do.
with that? You say that people say that a lot about a lot of things, like people stopping traffic for environmental reasons and causes. And say, man, come on. I think there's some things more important than your convenience
My
and
convenience.
your so-called civility and rules of comportment when it comes to flag, making them sacred. You can never touch them in the wrong way, say
I
anything bad
I
about
didn't
them.
say you couldn't do it. I'm saying that to prove a point, this American coming over, we don't need more crap from America. That's what I'm saying, because we can do a lot more on our own.
Well, we're just trying to help out. That's
Well,
all.
do you remember the 70s? Well, of course you do. Well, maybe it depends. Depends if you were inebriated or not. I remember a lot of the American flags being burnt by Vietnam drafters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyways, the 70s and burning American flags. Now, I
yeah.
would never burn an American flag.
Why not? You have a right to. Why not?
Well,
Why is that against the law? It's ridiculous. You can burn a Nazi flag, can't you?
yes, you can. And
Well, then,
actually, there was 2 farmers in southern Alberta had swastika flags, or Nazi flags.
Mm-hmm.
One pulled it down after outrage. The other guy left it up. That's how lenient we are up in Canada, right? I mean, but why is an American burning a Canadian flag? That's crap.
Well, because your country
No,
is
no,
part
burn
of
your own flag. Burn your own flag.
yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. So the UK has got quite a bit. I'm surprised Canada isn't on here because we have immigrants now that are homeless and they're using the food banks and stuff to survive up here, and students from other countries. Where's the US in this? Okay, so well, the UK wins over the US, I guess. Sleeping on the street versus temporary accommodation. The US is ahead in people sleeping on the street, followed by Belgium and Portugal and then Germany. So
Well, we have better weather.
you, you must have very good street, comfortable street.
No, we got terrible streets, but we got better weather, I guess, right? That's why there's so many homeless people in California.
I was gonna say I never did get that cat jerky recipe from you. I think last time I talked to you.
It's very easy. Take an ordinary cat
Okay.
and you jerk it around and you let it dry with some chemicals and some choice herbs and spice.
Okay.
Then you leave it in your closet for a few weeks,
Right.
like some neighbors that we know, and
It sounds like some good Maine food right there. Cat
well, it
jerky.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that.
People roughing it all the time eating cat jerky out here in Maine.
Right.
Yeah, and moose jerky. You can't tell
Well,
moose from cat. You cannot tell moose from cat here. I bet you couldn't.
I think I could. One's a white meat, I would think.
No, I'm talking sexually.
Oh, okay. No, that's true. But actually, moose jerky is a thing up here in Canada. Moose roast.
I bet. I
It
bet
is.
it is. Just, a next step from moose to human beings.
I don't doubt that too as well.
You
However
heard it
popular.
here first.
Okay. Have you ever been in a campaign like a writer for a campaign at all, Jim? Hmm.
But that does happen with certain comedy show. You may have a politician who's friendly with one of the producers or something, and
Mm-hmm.
they ask for some jokes, and
Well,
then they never use them.
I tried to watch Stephen Colbert the other night. I
I'm
really
sorry.
can't. He is switched from his nice pretend to be a rate guy, the Colbert Report, to his TV show now. I have a hard time watching.
Well, I don't watch it anymore either because he's an unctuous cornball, and
You mean he's a Catholic,
yeah, that too. That
right?
bullshit. I'm tired of hearing all about Jesus and things that are mythical coming out of his mouth when it comes to important issues and
Well, he doesn't
things.
believe in one God. He believes in three gods. It was the Ricky Gervais segment I was watching. My YouTube algorithm got
Yeah.
screwed up.
Father,
And
Son, Holy Ghost.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
You don't forget there was the Jesus's throne. At to the left of him sat his favorite woodchuck,
Hmm.
holy woodchuck. One of your viewers wanted to make the point that Martha Previte,
Martha Previte.
Privity,
Yeah.
Privitere.
Oh yeah.
Who cares? Well, anyway, she ran for office once. When was that? And anyway, and she got 2 school committee terms. She ran for
Really?
school in a city of 72,000, and she got 45% of the vote.
That's pretty darn good.
Ran twice in 2 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. It's her
Oh, that's
birthday coming up. There's a birthday coming up.
well, happy birthday, Martha. It's your birthday. In the club? Are you taking her to the club?
I'm taking her to the clubs. Yeah. And we're going dancing, a lot of dancing places, and then we're going to a meth lab, and then we're going to burn down a barn, and then push over a couple of moose because it's Maine.
Moose tipping is famous in Maine. I hear you. I hear you. Well, that's very good. Happy birthday to her if she's listening. We don't know.
Guess
But
how old she is?
no, I don't want to. She's a fine-looking lady, Jim, I have to say.
That sounds like you're talking about a horse. How dare you?
Oh, no tipping Martha either, right? Only moose tipping, not
Only on a bet.
Okay. Kissinger, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said something about Ukraine, which was wrong, and then reversed himself. But everybody thought, oh, Kissinger's still alive at the time. And I don't think he is now, right? He's passed, right?
No, he's dead. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I wrote an obit on him
They they
before he
buried
died.
him. They buried him 8 feet. They buried him deep.
So,
But yeah, no, Chomsky, when he was younger, some of his stuff was really electric.
you
Conduct.
dislike him for some reason? You don't like
I don't like his view on the war in Ukraine. I really don't, and
So how far do you want to go with it?
well, out of all the money that Americans have passed in Congress, the billions of dollars, they've only got a couple of percentage of that in Ukraine. And with what little they got this year from the Americans, they've done a fantastic job of holding Russia at bay. Russia's interest rates now are at 21%. Having to bring in North Vietnamese soldiers. Do we not have a world war now because we didn't properly fund the Ukraine army at the time?
No, I think we have World War III now because we did fund the Ukraine war. And as Chomsky quoted some other military expert, that we are engaged in a war and we're going to fight Russia down to the last Ukrainian. And that's what's happening.
Well,
Ukraine cannot survive without us propping up this war.
actually,
And
they can.
is
They can.
how they don't have they
No, they still
it's
got the European Union. They still have Canada. What I'm saying is the American stuff would have put them over. If it,
you're gonna go Canada's gonna go broke funding this endless ridiculous war that's gonna destroy Ukraine, just like the war of attrition and
well,
money. You think nobody can beat Russia? You're kidding?
okay, okay.
They have all the they have money to waste on North Korean mercy, and they're going
Uh,
to fight this war down to the last North Korean.
no, so what they did, it wasn't money for with the North Korean. It was nuclear technology. It's wheat, it's grain. That's what Russia's given to North Korea.
Yeah,
Technology, and Kim there, he'll build a nuclear bomb. And this is a result of not tackling the problem in the first place.
yeah, war.
It's probably a result of Obama not saying anything too much about Crimea, and Putin saying, "Well, I got away with that. Let's keep going." And you
Um,
know what? You're going to think I'm your next door neighbor right now, and I'm sorry.
uh, Puff away, baby.
Yeah.
Uh, no, I don't think I don't think you end war. I don't think you deal with aggression by starting another war in the process.
That's right. Why did Putin do that?
I don't know. Why do we have NATO? Why does NATO surround their borders? And why have they been doing
Bullshit.
that for 50 years now?
No,
What,
that's
NATO's not on their borders?
well, they are, but why do you think these Baltic states says, "Oh, can we join NATO, please?" It's because they were under Russian oppression before. They know
Yeah,
what the
well,
Soviet style is.
and they don't want to be on NATO's bad side either. They're
No,
stuck in between. They're between a rock and a hard place. Two
well, yeah, because
superpowers. The two superpowers battling it out with their little proxy wars. And I can guarantee you, this is why would we allow Russia into Cuba? We didn't back in 1964, 62. It's the same thing. What right do we have to fund and go to Russia's border? We're not the policemen of the world. We obviously are incompetent at that. We aren't the peacemakers of the world. We're the most destructive and violent place on earth, to paraphrase Martin Luther King during the Vietnam War. It's the same
I
thing we're
have,
doing. We're destroying Vietnam like we did. We're destroying Ukraine like we did Vietnam, because we must not let Chinese communists.
well, the funny thing about Vietnam was the Vietnamese really liked America and they wanted America's help in overthrowing the French. And American policy really screwed that up, didn't they?
Well, American policy always screws things up when they try to
And now,
install democracies at gunpoint. That's not how you help people. That's not how you help Ukraine. sending weapons. It's not how you help Israel. Send weapons to them. Look what happened.
True. Right. Did you hear about?
And again, I don't know why you're so surprised. You act like you're kind of surprised that
I'm Canadian. I'm always surprised.
much of the
Why
world
can't people be polite and
hates
get
us.
along?
Why do, like, good question. Why don't we stay
Kumbaya, Jim.
out?
Kumbaya.
Why do,
So why do people get involved with other wars, right?
because we're not helping you. We're not helping Ukraine. We're trying to wreck
Well, you're not helping
and
because
bank.
you haven't got the promised goods to them, Jim.
What are you talking about? We've sent
Jim, with a
billions and billions of dollars to
no, you've only
how
sent
many?
a
How
small
much money?
percentage of that. Biden hasn't released the funds yet.
That's baloney. Absolute baloney.
Come on.
What do you
I
mean?
read
Come
it in the
on. What are you
Washington
reading?
Post.
What are you reading from the Weekly Reader?
No, Washington Post and Dave
The
Rubin. No, I don't watch
Reader's
Dave Rubin.
Digest?
Well, I used to really like Reader's Digest. That was nice.
I bet you love the no, never mind.
They used to have these little jokes in them and stuff. So
That's right.
yeah.
No, we're not helping anybody. We're not helping Ukraine. We're destroying Ukraine. We didn't help Vietnam. We destroyed the whole country. We
Yes, you
destroyed,
did.
yeah,
And yeah,
the whole we didn't help Korea. We burned and destroyed and bombed every town and village in that whole peninsula, and our generals were proud of it, and we still couldn't win.
true.
So what we're doing is we're trying to win proxy wars of depletion against Chinese communists and Russia, trying
Right.
to make them unstable to the point where their governments are destroyed and they wreak havoc on each other. And
But
we're trying to destabilize these countries because we're still fixated on the Wolfowitz doctrine era.
so you're a Brzezinski fan then, I take it, right?
Which Brzezinski?
The one who
The
died. Uh,
piano player? You got some great Russian piano players.
Here's my view on Ukraine. If they would have got the arms that they needed to begin with, this would have been over. If there would have been some pushback with Crimea, this might not have happened. I mean, Russia's doing exactly what America does, right? The world, well, okay. The UN, how toothless of an organization is that nowadays? Do you remember when
Just
they used to have security well, toothless organization now. You know,
UN is toothless because there's only one vote that counts at the
on the
United Nations, and that's the United States vote. And
well,
the United States controls the UN like it controls NATO.
well, a good Eleanor Roosevelt, she was very high on it, right?
Yeah.
Well, a good thought is been I do you not think it's been corrupted between America, Russia, and the Arabian nations with all the oil money, and China too as well?
I think it's been corrupted by the United States, maybe Canada and Australia.
Well, Canada had a big movement with the UN in the 60s, Lester Pearson. And I think his heart was in the right place. Uh, he's a fairly good prime minister here in this country at the time. But do we need to reform the UN? And how can we do it so it's better?
Yes. And the United States.
Then you have to throw out Russia and China.
They're rogue states committing genocide.
But then who would listen to the UN without the United States and Russia?
It's a good question. We wouldn't, sorry, but 80% of the world disagrees, is against what we're doing.
Where? You mean all over the place?
And I don't think countries have rights anyway. They're not human beings, but I don't think any country has a right. I don't think, I think that kind of destroys the whole aspect of land of the home of the free and the
Right.
brave and yada yada.
Well, Jim, let me put it. I think
Thoughts.
I think Chomsky said about the Ukrainians. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong. If they just would have protested and not armed themselves, would have been a better outcome, right?
I don't know.
I don't know if he said
He
that
said
or if
that.
it was the peace leader project of the peace leader.
But
said,
yeah, it would have been.
well,
We don't know
what?
how many have been. We don't know how many Ukrainians have been killed by
Then why?
Russia is not an occupying force in Ukraine, right? And they haven't been
Jim,
occupying
Jim,
it for the
come on,
last 76 years. They
come
haven't
on.
surrounded it and treated it like an apartheid fenced in open air prison.
Jim, I think the theory holds well. If the Ukrainians were expected to be like the Chinese and get in front of tanks and protest peacefully, same thing could have been with the Palestinian people too. Russians came in there; they were going to overturn the government, right? The people's will. Don't you think that was something to fight against? Now in Ukraine,
Ukraine?
oh yeah, they were going to kill Zelensky. They were going to be done with him.
I don't. I think you're making a lot of assumptions about Russia.
No,
Russia doesn't want a NATO
no, that's what they
country.
say. It's an excuse. They've said the opposite for lots of years, and now Putin's just here with this excuse. Oh no, because we
I
didn't want NATO. That's not true at all.
I think you're a bit
That's been
a little
debunked.
bit foggy on your
No, no,
facts here, your
no,
historical
that's been
remembrances of what's
that
happening in the
that's been
last
debunked quite a bit.
100 years.
Tim. It's
No, it
been debunked.
hasn't been debunked. It
Yes, it
has not
has.
been debunked. The Zelensky was going
Putin
to
wanted into NATO at
wanted
one time. Putin said it's okay for countries to go into NATO at one time. So, no, he wanted the land, and by golly, he's tried to accomplish. It's a mistake what Russia did into Ukraine. Over 700,000 dead of Russians. I don't know how many Ukrainians.
But where are you getting that? I agree with you that it was a war crime and a
Mhm.
mistake, but where are you getting 700,000 dead Russians? And
That's what the IS
why can't you quote to me how many Ukrainians have been killed?
because they don't release
Because it's horrifically large. That's
the ISW has International something of war has released those figures. Let me bring it up for you, Jim. What I'm saying is
I don't know. Was there another way for South Africa, the African National Congress, to
the
against
ANC.
their yeah? Was there another way for them to act against their
Well,
racist oppressors? A bit before they were labeled terrorists. Nelson Mandela was still on the American terrorist list years
yeah,
after he won a victory there.
right.
So
No, I know. It's just that as a human species, we're so dumb. Where are the great thinkers in this world to help us not evolve into war, right? So
well, there's
here's from the IS.
Noam Chomsky has been pretty great thinker and doing a lot of talking for most of
Mhm,
his life. If people
right.
should pay attention to him instead of scoffing at him and saying, well, we got to supply more weapons to this endless war and war of attrition that's not going to end well for anybody, and it's killing an atrocious amount of Ukrainians. And we are fighting a war to the last Ukraine against Russia, and that's all we care about. This country doesn't care about anyone it claims to be helping.
Do you see the from the ISW the screen that I've posted there?
Yeah,
Right. So
the
almost
ISW.
700,000 Russians dead, and this is the reports from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Um,
Okay,
so
what's Ukraine? Why won't what does Ukraine say about their loss?
about half was the last estimate that I had. Exactly. They're not going to release that till the war's over. I get it. You're right, Jim, on that. But
I
war.
think it's pointless. I think it's pointless. The whole war is pointless. If they want to live and they want something, a building to stand,
Mhm,
left standing in Ukraine, I think
right.
they should have done what Zelensky wanted a long time ago and find a diplomatic
Yeah.
solution with Putin. And he was told not to by America and NATO.
No, yeah, I think judging Zelensky, if he thought that was best for his country, he would have done that, Jim. No,
No,
where are you getting your information from saying that? That was also part of Mearsheimer's argument, but that was debunked as well.
by by
That he
whom?
was
How
told
was it
not to.
debunked?
But you're saying Boris Johnson told him not to, we'll back you and stuff like that. There was a great big article on that. And no, that wasn't the case. The case was Russia came in and he was looking at giving up parts of the Donbass and Crimea and just settling this. He didn't want the war.
as far as from what I've read on. I don't know him personally. So, and I don't think that the United States twisted his arm to go to war. I don't think that.
You don't think the United
No,
States
I don't think you can
twists
take,
the arm
no,
of countries that rely on our aid and our military largesse? You don't think that we twist the arm of these people?
no, not in this case. No, no,
Why
I
would
don't,
this be the exception to the 200-year-old rule
because it's
of
not
our country?
Africa, because
Because they're white?
they're Ukrainian.
Because they're white? You're saying that
No,
we wouldn't twist their arm because they're white?
no, I don't think. I think. Well, he was encouraged to leave and to set up a government outside of Ukraine,
Okay. Well,
right?
I'm
By America, because they didn't think he was going to win either
okay.
or
Well,
stop them.
if you're, I don't think again, I'm just going to keep repeating this. We don't do anything to help anybody. We do it to help ourselves. And we didn't look at every major military disaster we've been part of,
Hmm.
and you'll see that scenario. We don't help people. We destroy their country. Kill a lot. We get a lot of their population killed in the process,
Hmm.
and it ends up being a stalemate, or the whole region is just destable. And
Well, the good,
it's insane if we destabilize Russia,
right?
that they have like 1,500 nuclear warheads aimed right at us.
Yeah.
And you want to destabilize that country. You want that country to all of a sudden be thrust into probably a civil war where the military is arguing with civilian part of the government, and you want that to happen while they are still overseeing a decrepit nuclear arsenal pointed right at us.
Yes.
For a transcript of tonight's program, send 25 cents to Merkel Press.
The good news is murder rates are going down in the United States. So maybe you are going
Yeah,
to be a kinder people. But as far as
that's because people are killing themselves first.
right, right. As far as Russia going down that path, no, I think they have too many Slovaki, they call them, or oligarch-like people who are. I think I don't think so. I mean, the Chechens right now have done a blood feud against some members of the Russian parliament,
Mm.
and they're going to kill them. Russia has taken most of the people fighting for Russia from the outlying districts who are predominantly Muslim. Once it reaches now he's to the point where he's going to have to bring people out of Moscow and St. Petersburg to arm his forces. He's not called for the draft because the last time he did it 2 years ago, there was some rumbling. And that's his base of support is Moscow and St. Petersburg. And I personally don't think Putin gives a shit about anybody in Russia except for him and his special people.
I,
So
I, I wouldn't
as as
disagree with that at all. I mean,
as far as
take a look at us.
as
Do you
far as
think
new
anybody in the White House gives a shit about what's going on? Oh, I'll veto Medicare for all if it ever comes across my desk during a deadly pandemic while 5,000 people are dying every fucking day. You can
it's
guarantee you that. We're a little more
I think
downbeat
it
about.
has. I think it has, especially in the North Korean. It. I didn't think it was going to start in Israel, World War III, but it could start in the Ukraine and Russia. And all those countries are now armed to the teeth. Poland is just pulling in a massive amount of military hardware, right?
Mm.
Lithuania, even in Baltic, and Sweden. I mean, like Putin made Finland and Sweden join NATO. Like, who does that? Putin does. He's a stupid fellow.
Let me let me ask you a question.
Okay.
If Cuba had invaded the United States 2 times in 50 years
Mm.
and started a world war and killed 40 to 50 million of American citizens and Canadians, we'll put Canada. You fools would join us. And then
We said no to
if
Iraq, Jim. Jim,
if
Canada said no to Iraq.
really you don't have any peacekeepers anywhere with us anywhere. Anyway, let me
We
finish this
did in
scenario first before
Afghanistan.
you go on with
We
that.
did in Kandahar. We did up in the with
Okay. Well,
Clinton's thing.
anyway, let me finish.
Okay, you finish. You go ahead. You got the
If we
floor.
had
The floor is Jim's.
if North America had been invaded 2 times 50 years, by Cuba and killed over 40 million of its inhabitants in a horrific series of world wars.
Mhm.
Would you want them joining NATO on your borders?
Is that question for me, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Jim, you are
And
a funny guy. Look at, if Cuba invaded the USA, it wouldn't be twice. It would be once, and Cuba would be done. That's the way that works, Jim.
okay, Germany was done in
Pardon me?
1918. Germany was, quote,
Mm-hmm.
done in 1918. Didn't
Mm-hmm.
stop them from coming back a second time.
Oh, well,
and
here we go talking about
invading Russia and killing 40 million Russians. So
Russia. No, no, no.
all I'm saying is if you want to understand what's happening, the motivations of people, try to understand how they feel about being surrounded by a group of countries.
You know, they don't feel a friggin' thing.
Led by one of the countries that killed 40 million of their civilians.
Why did 40 million die, Jim? And who was Hitler aligned with anyways to start the war? Oh, it was Russia, my friend. And they creamed Poland, and they creamed the people in Ukraine. They killed them.
What are you saying? What are you saying? Back to having Germany on your borders,
okay,
and amassing troops and engaging in war military exercises.
And it was with, Ukrainians
and several other countries led by the United States on your borders for decades. Don't you think Russia has a right to be a little nervous about that?
Quite a bit of those 40 million to begin with are Ukrainians and Polish and Czechs that died.
They were
there.
Part of Russia. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now, sure, there's Stalingrad or St. Petersburg, that atrocity.
Wait a minute. You're not trying to downgrade. You dismiss the amount of
I'm trying to
Russians
tell you that the
Soviet in World War II,
doctrine of war is the same as it is now. We just throw people into the blender. We give them a rake and say, go hit a German. A lot of those people were killed as the war had already turned. But Stalin wanted to be the first to get into Berlin, right? Is that not true, Jim?
I don't know what you're trying to say.
I'm trying to say a lot of those 40 million died unnecessarily, according to the Soviet doctrine of war. They threw people.
But you're blaming tens of millions of murdered Russians
on Stalin. Yes.
On Stalin?
Yes. Just like I'm blaming 700,000 Russians currently on Putin.
I'm not talking about Stalin's 5-year plans or his purges.
No, okay? No, I'm talking about the Second World War.
I'm talking about how many Russians were killed by Nazis in World War II. I mean,
right. And I'm saying that
millions.
Yes. And why? Because
Nazis invaded Russia.
No, that's not.
That's why so many died, because Nazis invaded Russia and
quite a few died.
Slaughtered civilians.
Right. But it was on the turn when the Germans were retreating is when a lot of the Russians died. Trust me on that.
Trust you? I'm not trusting you. Yeah. A lot of them died. Of course, a lot of them died on the retreat, but a lot of them died on the attack.
Yes, this is true. And sure,
that was the whole purpose of the attack was to kill Russians and take their land. Lebensraum.
Right. And again, Russia was aligned with Germany for the war.
No, they weren't. They made a treaty at the very
start. They both
You're talking about World War I.
Okay, you're right.
World War I.
Okay,
they were no position to fight Germany.
I'm talking about World War II.
World War II. They did it for
appeasement. There was appeasement involved, wasn't there, Jim?
Yes, but that is
my understanding. Is Germany went into the Sudetenland. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong, because you will.
I don't care. This has got nothing to do.
Hitler said, "I'm taking this land back," and nobody pushed him, and he was surprised. Same thing as when Russia took Crimea.
Okay,
they were surprised he got away with it.
What is your point?
That's my point.
Your point is
when a bully comes in. When a bully comes in, you got to punch him in the nose, Jim.
Russia didn't have the army to do anything. Just like Britain didn't have an army, didn't have a military to fight Germany. at the beginning of.
In well,
Okay, so
Germany didn't have quite the army either when they took the Sudetenland.
Germany had an incredible army. They
After
had the best
after
army in Europe.
Hitler was surprised. Do you ever
They
watch
built.
World at War, Jim?
I
Remember
don't
those?
use that for my history book. Okay, and
World in War in color.
Hitler spent all of
It's
the
on YouTube.
30s building up the military and the Navy and their air force.
He still
The fact remains that Nazis invaded Russia in World War II, killed tens of millions of people, Russian soldiers and Russian civilians.
Ukrainians and
Right?
Polish.
And because of that, they may be a bit skittish about having a bunch of countries doing military exercises right on their border, being led by countries like the United States and Germany, who has a big military. And it's a very prestigious, wealthy country.
Why wasn't that a problem till Putin started complaining about it in 2022? Huh?
I think Russia's always had a problem with.
No, they wanted to join NATO and everything. They did.
Who cares? You know, you don't think Russia's always had a problem with Western countries?
Well, yeah, they're
aligning
jealous,
on
aren't
their
they?
military?
No, their problem
That's
is
why-
they wanted these lands to be in their sphere of control, just like America wants Cuba to be in their sphere of control, right? I get that. I get your analogy. However, Ukraine they were their own country, as dictated by when the Soviet Union broke up, and Russia Parliament.
Cuba's their own country. Cuba's their own country. You know, Russia should start arming Cuba again and send their military and missiles and put all their air force and a big navy.
That didn't work out well last time, right?
Well, it nearly destroyed the world, so
Yeah.
that's how it didn't work out well.
Yeah, but they had nuclear missiles that worked back then.
If you want to play chicken like that in Russia, on the outskirts of Russia with NATO, then that's insanity. And that's why we're closest to midnight on the doomsday clock than we ever have been in the history of the doomsday clock.
That is true. The doomsday clock has moved ahead. Yes. Now, Jim, as far as nuclear missiles go in the Soviet Union, in Russia, China and India will have something to say about that.
How's that? What does that mean?
Well, China and India have nuclear missiles.
So what will they say about it?
They will say, Russia, you try this, guess what?
Well, that sounds insane to me. Yeah, that sounds perfectly. So, yeah, that's a good way of dealing with it. So we should just let that happen, is what you're saying, instead of disarming things. And we could tell Ukraine, you know, Ukraine has a choice. Either
what's the choice, Jim?
Either succumb to what Russia wants,
right,
or be destroyed.
No.
Which would you want?
No.
What?
I mean, like, everybody gave them 3 days and then 2 weeks. And guess what? They're still here, Jim. There's something about that country. They don't want to be dictated about Russia. It's the same as Poland. That's why Poland's armed to the teeth. They don't want none of this shit anymore, Jim. Maybe Russia should just
you live in like a Texas John Wayne cowboy movie.
No.
What are you, Clint Eastwood? We're tired of those guys coming in on horses and bullying the peasants. We're gonna team up and build up a nice little army ourselves, and we're gonna show those guys.
Jim, I'm gonna give you this theory here, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong. Putin should have used his soft diplomacy skills instead of using his military. Period.
Well, I think he did. I think he tried that. I think he tried to have a diplomatic
he didn't try hard
solution
enough,
with
then, man.
Zelensky, and Zelensky wanted to, and he was rejected by his
handlers, Jim.
Powers that be, the United States and NATO.
So, yeah, I don't think so. Zelensky would have done what was good for his country, my friend. I actually have no doubt.
You don't. I think it's really naive to think that Ukraine is not bullied by the U.S. to do what the U.S. really not.
Well,
that's our pattern throughout the world.
Yeah, in this case, I don't think so, Jim.
How could this possibly be the exception?
Stuff I've read, that's all I can go by. I understand that concept because I had to really think about that at the start of the war. Did the United States twist Ukraine's arm to be in the war, right? And I have come to the acknowledgement. I don't think it's wish fulfillment. I don't think that they did. I think that's to take away the onus on the people of Ukraine about what they wanted, Jim. and because they weren't part of NATO, they weren't part of the EU, they still could go their own way. And I think they had the right to defend themselves, and they did a magnificent job.
They're
Don't you think?
dying and they're going to be destroyed. Their country is destroyed right now, practically. What do you
Russians,
want? How much more do you want these noble people to fight?
well, yeah, and speaking of war crime, I mean Russian missiles into the energy system, um,
yeah,
hitting kindergartens and schools,
yeah,
trying to get the populace scared,
right.
right? And
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's a war crime.
it's a war crime.
So how many
I
more Ukrainians have to die just to, feed our ego, this country's ego, and
I
our misplaced, ridiculous notion of
I
what
think
countries
this
should be?
I think the support of this war is the only war that the United States have really got right. And if they would have got off their ass and send the stuff out, more Ukrainians would be alive today.
I think it's
I
asinine, destructive, and it's
well,
destroying and killing Ukrainians. I think it's a war crime that we're engaged feeding, and I think it has brought us close to World War III
mhm,
or a nuclear annihilation, closer than we've ever been since the Cold War. And we're doing the same thing with Israel and God. Foolish, it's self-destructive,
right.
and it's destroying two countries.
Okay. Jim, let me this be my last argument then. Appeasement. He wanted Ukraine to appease Russia, let's say. Taking people out of the Tartars out of Crimea and stuff. There was no genocide done by the Russians in the past then? Is that what you're saying? Wouldn't the
No,
Ukrainians
I'm
have
not
a
saying that at all. I'm not saying
wouldn't the
that at all.
Ukrainians also have a fear of genocide then?
I would say yes. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
But how many different nationalities and different languages are there in Ukraine? What defines Ukraine?
What defines
What defines Ukraine? How many times has Ukraine been part of Russia, and Poland been part of, and Crimea been part of Russia over the last
a couple
three,
hundred
four
years? Yeah.
centuries,
Mm-hmm.
900 years?
Right.
I mean, there are parts of Ukraine that want to be in Russia, controlled by.
Well, then they could
I
vote
don't
on
think
it.
they're
I would suggest the Ukraine's doing the same thing by fighting back. Jim?
the same thing. They're not in the same situation.
Okay, fair enough.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Though
I'm going to agree to disagree on this.
the
But,
big consider us the moral compass of the world, and especially in regarding what's happening in Ukraine.
well, I've seen all the Hollywood movies, Jim. You guys put yourself as the moral majority in the world. It's your PR campaign.
Then why don't you leave Canada and live in Burbank, California? And every day you can walk across to Universal Studios and
I
Warner
have
Brothers,
no desire to go into the United States,
put
except
on
to
a
see you
clown
guys in
outfit.
Maine. I would go see you guys in Maine.
We're not part of any country.
No, you're not. You're not Maineless though.
We just have a lot of rocks and shale and
Hmm.
radon and crack houses and burning bar and
Yeah,
moose.
and cornhole. You have cornhole.
Cornholing, yes, but nobody wants to admit it.
True. Jim, I'm going to thank you for the conversation. I don't know if it was what you liked, but thank you very much for your opinion. I value it because you're older than me.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the wisdom of my elders.
When were you
Jim.
born? How old are you?
We've been through this before. I'm 63, Jim.
63.
Yeah. And you're in very good shape. Martha, happy birthday to Martha. Martha's treating you well, obviously, because you look good. You look good, Jim.
Well,
You know,
I live in a cold.
diabetes does wonders for a body. Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much.
All right, whatever. See you in court.
Awesome. You take care.
All right. Clean it with bleach.